Hey guys, it's Karina with Karina Loves to Plan. Welcome back to my channel. So here I am with my March currently inked progress report. I thought I would do this as a separate video from my April currently inked because I haven't actually picked my April pens yet, so I can't actually film the two together. So I'm gonna go ahead and then do the progress report for each of the pens that I inked up in March. I will leave a card up here up in the corner, so if you haven't seen that video yet, you can go ahead and check that out. But I will just show you quickly what I grade each of the pens on. I grade the ink, and I grade the flow, and I also grade the comfort level of the pen. So let's get started. One of the things I'm also going to be showing you is writing samples in my Rhodia notebook. One of the things that I also do with my pens is I'm actually transcribing. Let me grab the book here. Anne of Green Gables. Why am I doing this? I think I got the idea from Ink Fade, and actually I think Amanda B is also doing this, but I don't journal enough to use 7 pens a month, but I still love the act of writing. So I thought, what better way to still write and use my pens while also reading a book from my childhood. So I will show you guys the writing samples as well as I go through all of my pens. The first pen I have here is my Cross Botanica Green Daylily, and this was my first ever fountain pen. So if you don't remember, all of the pens that I used for March were part of the fountain pen superlatives. So the Cross Botanica Green Daylily was my first ever fountain pen. So I rated the ink an 8 on this one, the flow of the pen at 9, and the comfort level a 5. So while I do love this pen because of all of the sentiment that it has, the narrow width of the pen is uncomfortable for me to write with. As you can see here, it just makes me hold the pen really tight. The flow of this pen is absolutely fantastic, and it makes any dry ink flow. And this ink in particular, this is on Rhodia, or on the Rhodia notebook, so it's going to look a little bit different than on the Tomoe River paper, but this ink is just absolutely fantastic. I love Ferris Wheel Press Madame Mulberry. It's this beautiful grayish purple, and I think in any other pen, it may have been a little bit dry, but here on the Rhodia paper with this pen, the flow is absolutely fantastic. So I was really happy with that the ink itself was such a great ink. And I mean, look at it. I think there was a little shimmer left over in the pen, so it looks like there's a bit of shimmer here in the swatch. But overall, other than the pen itself being a little bit uncomfortable to hold, unfortunately, the ink flowed really well in it, and it's just such a beautiful ink. It was just unfortunate about this pen. Then the second pen in the lineup was my newest pen. It is my Little Pen Designs Acadia model in the pastel primary manipulation. And this was actually the pen that I used in my A6 5-year journal. And the ink that I have in there is Colorverse Brunch Date. So the way that I rated this was the ink itself was a 10 because you guys know how much I love my dusty pinks. The flow is a 10. Considering the fact that this has an extra fine Yovo nib, the flow was fantastic, and then the comfort level was a 9. So you see it here in the Rhodia notepad where I'm just transcribing Anne of Green Gables, and it's a very smooth writer, and there was no issues with the flow whatsoever, even in the extra fine nib. So the two together, the extra fine nib with this particular pen, really great pairing, and the pen actually feels really great in my hand. So you can see here the beautiful color of this ink on the Rhodia paper. It's just one of my favorite shades of pink, and I just cannot get enough of this. And then if you look down here at the bottom, you can see the way that this shades. It's a little bit more pink, a little bit more red, but it's just such a beautiful color, and I'm so glad that this was the one that I used in my A6 5-year journal. This was a pen that I ended up buying used on Reddit, and it was at such a great price, and I'm just in love with how beautiful this pen looks. I'm going to be sad to not ink this up next month. The next pen I have here is my oldest pen and my only vintage fountain pen, and it is my Pelikan 140. So look at that beautiful nib, and it's got a bit of a flex to it as well. So with this particular pen, I rated the ink. The ink that I had in this was actually Ferris Wheel Press Moss Park Green, and this was a sample given to me by someone local to me. And the ink is this beautiful green. The flow, well, the ink I gave a 9, the flow I gave a 10, because this pen is just a fire hose of a pen. It just flows really well. It makes any dry ink really wet, and I absolutely love that. So the ink was a 9 because just look at the beautiful shading, which you'll see here shortly, and it does really well on the Tomoe River paper. And then the flow, like I said, this pen works really well with drier inks. Now the pen itself, the comfort level, I gave an 8 because smaller pens for me are less comfortable, but I can write a page with this and still be fine. But if you look closely here at how beautiful this ink looks on the Rhodia paper, and look at that beautiful shading. So the nib on this pen is an extra fine nib, and it is a bit softer, but you wouldn't be able to tell it's an extra fine nib because of how juicy this nib is and how wet it is. So this Pelikan 140 with an extra fine nib is my only vintage pen and my oldest pen, and I had so much fun with it this month, and I don't know if I'll ever buy another vintage pen. I do have one in mind, but we will see. The next pen in the lineup was the youngest pen. So the youngest pen was the Narwhal Nautilus in the primary manipulation, and this has an extra fine nib that actually had a medium nib to begin with, but I had it ground down to an extra fine nib by Jack Hernandez. And this pen was actually a collaboration between PenChalet and Carolina Pen Company, and I absolutely love this pen. The ink is Navalor or Narwhal Atlantic Blue, and then I gave the ink an 8. It's not a shade that I normally lean to. I don't normally lean to blues or teals, but this one is lovely. The flow of the pen, for an extra fine nib that was ground down, the flow is a 10. And it's just perfect for me. Whenever I get nibs ground down by Jack Hernandez, I ask him to make them on the wetter side. So on a scale of 1 to 10 for wetness, I normally ask for about a 7, and that seems to be the perfect flow for me. He knows exactly how wet I like my pens to write, and for an extra fine nib, it's just absolutely perfect. But the pen itself, for the comfort level, I gave that a 9. The width and the weight of this pen make it comfortable for me to hold, and it's not one of those pens that I feel is too narrow that I have to grip so tightly. And here you can see the shading of the Narwhal Atlantic Blue, just the way that it pulls. So I like showing the circles with the swatches so you can see the shading, but then you can see how this extra fine nib also works really well with this ink. Some extra fine inks don't show off the ink color very well, but this one, because of the wetness of this ink and the flow, is just fantastic. I really love this pen, and I really love it with the extra fine nib ground down specifically for me. The next pen is my cheapest pen, or least expensive pen, and that is my Pilot Cocoon with a fine nib, and it is currently inked up with Pilot Iroshizuku Fuyugaki. So orange is a little bit outside of my comfort zone when it comes to inks, but it is beautiful. I wanted something that I wouldn't normally use, and I'm also motivated to use up the ink samples that I have. So I rated the ink a 9 because it is beautiful. It's not your typical garish orange. It almost leans a little bit towards the coral, and the flow of this ink with the pen is a 10. Absolute 10. So the two together, the Pilot Iroshizuku Fuyugaki with the Pilot Cocoon, just the two together, 10 out of 10 flow. And when I say 10 out of 10, I don't mean 10 as in like it's a fire hose. I mean 10 out of 10. The flow is perfect for me. And then the comfort level of this pen, now I know that the Pilot Cocoon is on the smaller side, but it's not that small that it hurts my hand. It's actually perfect enough for me so that I can write a page with this pen quite comfortably. So here's another shot of the Pilot Iroshizuku Fuyugaki, and this time it's in the Rhodia. And yes, it did bleed through a little bit. You can see some of the bleed through from the previous page, but look at the shading. Absolutely gorgeous ink. So I definitely recommend, you guys know this is the least expensive pen and it is a starter pen, and I highly, highly recommend it. Now the next pen is my most expensive pen, and it is my Leonardo Memento Zero Grande 2.0 in angel skin. This pen was also the largest pen in my collection, so it met both criteria as most expensive and the largest pen. So the ink that I used in here is Pilot Iroshizuku Yama Budo. I didn't love the ink when I first got it over a year ago, but I decided to give it another chance, and I rate this ink now a 9 because it is beautiful. It's got fantastic shading, and then in terms of the flow of this pen with this ink, I rate another 10 out of 10 because it is the perfect flow for me. And the nib, this 14 karat rose gold nib, is so smooth. Both of them together are absolutely beautiful. And then in terms of the comfort level of the pen, I rated it an 8 because this pen might actually be verging on being too big for me. I do like the bigger pens, but this one is getting close to the point where it might be a little bit too big. And there is the beautiful shading of Yamabudo. So in terms of pen sizes, the more that I do my currently inks and try out different pens, the more that I'm finding specific sizes that are working for me. So it's all of this experimentation. I still love this pen and I don't think I will ever sell it, but it is verging on almost too big for me. But look at it, so pretty. And then the last pen in my roundup is my smallest pen, which is the Pilot Pereira, and it currently has a calligraphy medium nib. And the ink in that is the Sailor 150th Anniversary Shikiori ink. And the ink itself, I am giving a 9 because it is a beautiful shading ink. It's this gorgeous kind of brown, olivey green. It's a rice color, and it's got the perfect flow with the calligraphy medium nib, so I rated the flow a 9 as well. And on the Rhodia paper, it was smooth and flowed beautifully. There were no flow issues at all with this pen whatsoever. The only thing with this pen though, I gave the comfort level of this pen a 5. It is too small for me, and where the cap rests on the pen and then where it inevitably rests on my hand, it's annoying and a little painful after writing with it for a while. But here is the swatch of the Sailor 150th Anniversary Shikiori, and it is a beautiful brown. So much complexity to that ink. Absolutely love the ink, but this pen might be one that I end up selling eventually, which is unfortunate. It's a beautiful pen, but not comfortable. So there is the finished progress report for March, and I really can't tell which, well, no, that's not true. Which one is my favorite? I do love writing with the little pen Designs Acadia and the pastel primary manipulation, but I also love writing with the Nautilus and the primary manipulation. They're both fantastic, fantastic pens to write with. So maybe those two are my favorites, but I hate even saying a least favorite, but my two least favorite to write with were the Cross Botanica Green Daylily and the Pilot Pereira. And I am considering selling the Pilot Pereira, so watch out for that one. All right, but that is it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the format of this video and liked having it separate from the currently inked, please let me know down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Once again, thank you guys, and have yourselves a great day.